and welcome to this episode of Voices of Fostering, where I'm delighted to be joined by one of our lovely foster carers today. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you here, Ruth, and it's
Thank you.
lovely to have somebody in person as well.
Yeah.
We do so much virtual stuff these days. It's
Yeah.
really nice to have you here on the sofa.
I much prefer face-to-face.
Absolutely. So tell us, Ruth, you've been a foster carer not for too long now. It's about a year, is it?
Yeah, about 15 months now,
yeah. So take us back to the beginning. What led you to becoming a foster carer?
As a teacher and a person as well, I've always wanted to be a foster carer at some point, something that I always spoke about with my now ex-husband and something that we looked to do. We had 3 children of our own and very busy careers, so it wasn't necessarily the right time. But as my children have grown up and left the house, I decided, I think 2 years ago now, that I wanted to actually start that process. And a good friend of mine that I'd reconnected with from school days has been a foster carer, and it was listening to her story that really made me think, yeah, this is the sign I need to start this process.
Yeah, and that we can't underestimate that, and that's why we do this podcast, because hearing other people talk about it inspires others to do it, and that's what we're aiming to do with you chatting to us today.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like it's really important now for you to talk about it so you inspire others?
Absolutely. And so I have suggested last year to my supervising social worker that I'd like to help if I can in speaking about my experiences and any help that I can do in speaking to others who might be interested. So this is part of that.
Yeah.
And NFA seemed a really, really high quality agency from what my friend said as well, and that standards were particularly high. So I reached out to them, and one of the recruitment people came and spoke to me, and I decided to go ahead with the application.
Yeah, and then your assessment, quite often, we use the words like very thorough, maybe a little bit intrusive, but quite therapeutic a lot of the time. How did you find it?
Yes, all of those things.
Yeah.
There were times when I did find it quite tough, and I thought as a very open person that I might have found that a little bit more straightforward, but it isn't easy at times, but it definitely is worth pushing through those and keep going, because I understand why the rigor is there and the high standards for making sure that everything is in place and above board.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, obviously, applying as an older carer, and something that I really think needs emphasising is that foster care is one of those wonderful careers that one can do in later life, and that there is no upper age limit. Yeah. And as we all know, age is a number, and it's about the energy that you can bring to the role, and that doesn't have a number on it. So I think that's really important, that people realise that as long as you're reasonably fit and healthy and you've got the love and the energy, you can be a foster carer. So I think that's a really important thing, because these days you hear a lot about ageism in careers and so on. So that was a real positive for me, because that's an open-ended career now for the rest of my life as I see it.
Yeah, so after you were approved, tell us what happened then.
So I was tutoring teens one-to-one for Stockport Council who can't, for health reasons, mental health reasons, physical health reasons, can't access mainstream education. Okay. And so it took me a year to sort of whittle those hours down until financially, as a single carer as well, it is important to say that economically that the timing has to be right too, that you've got your ducks in a row financially. And then I was approached by the referrals team in July last year and initially I'd said I wanted a girl rather than a boy, but I was approached about this wonderful young man, and as soon as I heard about him, I was very interested. And the process then went really quite quickly. I think that's something for people to be aware of. that I then went and met this young man in the foster home he was in at the time. And the reason he was moving was that the school he was moving to was nearer to where I live than where he was originally, because he is in he's in a football academy for a well-regarded football club in our area, and that was the school that he was going to go to nearby, associated with that club. So as soon as I met him, something clicked, and I just loved his gentleness and his calm nature. And I heard such wonderful things about him that he was with me within about 10 days after that initial meeting. And we've never looked back. He is the most wonderful addition to my life and my family. I'm very close with my 3 grown-up children who all live in the area. One in particular was still living with me at the time. 5 months later, she moved out, but she only lives 5 minutes away. She's 25, and she just adores him, as we all do. He's just fitted in beautifully. Big animal lover, because I had 4 cats and a dog at the time, but he adores cats and asked if he could have, and they're all rescues, obviously, and he asked if he might have some kittens of his own. Aww. So in January, we got 2 brother kittens. And again, I just feel very strongly that animals can be a really therapeutic and soothing presence in a home. To me, personally, my house wouldn't be a home without them.
Yeah.
And in fact, this young man has said that one of my cats, in fact, one of the older cats, he said to me once that he used to tell his fears to him or talk to the cat. And again, perfect. That's absolutely, again, no judgment, all the unconditional love that we hear that animals give, and physical comfort too.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, an important aspect, and it has really, he loves that. And I think it gives him, because he's now with me long term, he was 11 when he came to me, and I'm after about a year, if all is well, then you can go ahead for long-term foster care. And so all being well, he'll be with me for another 6 years till he's 18. And that's something I've always wanted. I've always wanted to have that long-term placement, if you wish.
Because I think sometimes people can imagine during the assessment, they can imagine the type of fostering they might do. But it's important to point out that your foster son is an asylum seeker.
Yes.
Is that what you imagined you would do?
Yes, it's something that I was really interested in.
Yeah.
And also, I remember the first time that I picked up the phone to speak to NFA, and I remember the person saying, "So what age group are you interested in?" And I said, "Teenagers." And there was a silence.
People don't normally say that.
And he said, "People don't say that." And I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "I've always been a secondary teacher, so that's where I feel most comfortable." And also, I think the particular trauma that unaccompanied asylum-seeking children have gone through just absolutely tears at my heart, and it's something that I like. I just want to make them feel safe, secure.
Yeah, but you feel able to deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, NFA, my supervisor and social worker started working for NFA, I think around the time that I was approved. So I actually met her when I was in the office in the Northwest to have my panel day, and she introduced herself. And as soon as I saw her, I thought, I really like you. And she's been wonderful. I just couldn't ask for a more lovely, attentive, caring, but no nonsense, and just there for me. Luckily, touch wood, haven't needed to ask for much help.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to know that she's there.
Yeah.
So he's just been wonderful. He's fitted straight in, doing really well at school, great in his sport as well. So he's very much my son. He's part of the family.
Yeah. So there's you and your foster son. Do you think it will just stay the two of you, or?
All being well, I've just been approached a couple of weeks ago about an unaccompanied asylum-seeking girl this time, who's a little bit older and has been through a very harrowing time. But and I've met her yesterday, and all being well, she may well be moving in next week. So again, that's something. And language there is a little bit of a barrier. So I'm looking forward to, she attends college every afternoon to learn English. She's only been in the UK a couple of months. So again, I just want to make her feel safe, secure, that she's got a loving pair of arms around her, metaphorically.
Yeah.
To make her feel that she doesn't have to be quite in fight or flight mode anymore, that she can actually relax a bit.
Yeah. So how does it feel to know the difference that you've made to your foster son's life?
I mean, I would say that I wouldn't necessarily, I think he would be like that wherever he is, because he's just wonderful, and I think he'd just do 1,000% for anybody he was with. But it's just I can't tell. I said to him the other day, I said, you bring me joy every single day. And again, I think it's so important to tell people that, whether it's a foster child or anybody in your family, that that you love. Well, I don't tell him that I love him, but that they feel loved and they feel valued. And I revel in everything that he does in his sport and at school, and he grabs every chance he's given, and his work ethic is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't ask for anybody more lovely.
So you've been so open, Ruth, to the types, as we said before, of fostering that maybe people usually shy away from. You know, like teenagers, let me have them. Asylum seekers, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. What would you say to anybody listening who's thinking about being a foster carer about those types of fostering? Because there are a lot of teenagers that unfortunately do get overlooked.
Yes. I would always say don't judge. I think we all, and even I did as well, going into it thinking, gosh, who am I going to be matched with? And, you know, your mind can run away with you. I would say take each step as it comes. Listen to the referral team, listen to your supervisor and social worker, because they know you and they know from what you've told them, they match you really, really carefully, is what I'd say as well. So be open. As I say, I originally wanted a girl, didn't want a boy. And now I realise, no, that's not, it's about the individual.
Yeah.
So be open, be open-hearted.
Yeah. And have an open mind.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And what about when people who maybe you just meet find out about what you do? Are they like, wow, you know, do they want to know all about it?
Yes. And just like I was when I met my long lost school friend at a school reunion, and I just sat talking with her all night, and I was just blown away. She actually took the day after she and her husband were approved 15 years ago, they were approached about a sibling group of 3. Wow. Baptism of fire. And she took them, and she had them to adulthood. Wow. So that's a whole other level.
Yeah, because how do you feel about sibling groups? Like,
I feel very strongly about keeping them together.
Oh yeah. But would you be open to
yes,
taking
in the future? In the future, yes. I mean, they've been through so much loss. To then be split up must be another level of trauma again. So, yes, it's you know, I just say it's just a wonderful thing to do, and if you feel. It's about and often, again, I'm going to come back to that, the older person as well, you know, often empty nesters, people like me who just, you know, I love to look after people. It's just who I am. And the thought of having an empty house, I just, you know, I'd much rather help a young person as much as I can and make their lives as positive and give them a secure footing and build confidence. I think that's something that I really feel passionately about.
Yeah.
Both from when I was a teacher and now in my fostering. It's just about making them believe in themselves and, you know, every day praise for everything that they do, and encouragement and lots of rest and relaxation. You know, they don't always want to do. You don't please think that you have to take them out all the time and do, you know, for a lot of these young people, they crave a home life as well, and they feel safe in their home. So it isn't necessarily something you're going, oh gosh, I'm going to be having to take them out on days out and stuff. No, that's not the case. So I think a lot of people have a lot of preconceptions, and I understand that. But if you're with a good agency as well, there are lots of things that are laid on if you wish to participate that cost nothing. And so I would just really recommend anybody to go ahead and see where the journey takes you.
Yeah, and as you say, there's a lot on offer as well, isn't there? Because with the National Fostering Group, you can learn a lot.
Yes.
Things like therapeutic parenting,
amazing.
There's a lot of courses.
Yes.
So, what sort of things have you taken?
Yes, so
advantage
I've done some of those. The introduction to therapeutic fostering. Obviously, there are some yearly ones that you have to keep up with, statutory ones like safeguarding, obviously. But there are so many that you can access. And again, if you, as we spoke at the beginning, if you can't access them face-to-face, if you haven't got the time to get over to Warrington or wherever, then there are a lot of online courses. And as I've said, I preferably would go in. I like meeting people and speaking to people face-to-face. So there's an absolute plethora of options for you to develop yourself. And communication's very good on there. And also regular meetups for breakfasts or lunches or coffees, or there's always something that you can join in.
Yeah, there's a good network
absolutely
there for you. Yeah. So you're still quite relatively early on in your journey, really. How long do you see yourself doing this for, Ruth? What do you reckon?
Open-ended, as long as, touch wood, health-wise and everything else. As I said, it's very exciting to me to think that this isn't an ageist sort of career path. And indeed, my supervisor social worker has told me she has, I think, several carers in their 70s. And again, my friend, she has a friend where she lives in her 70s. And I think that's wonderful. Yeah. I think it keeps your mind ticking over and keeps you relevant and, a youthful outlook. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And just to sum up, Ruth, how would you say fostering has enriched your life?
Oh, immeasurably. And also for me, learning about different cultures, different types of cuisine, different faiths. You can really throw yourself into learning about that young person's background and heritage as much as they might be immersing themselves into your culture. So it's a win-win in my book. You meet halfway.
Yeah. Well, I really hope that we get to chat again, Ruth.
I'd love to.
You're only a year in. You're looking like you're about to embark on having your second young person come to live with you. So I really hope that we get to catch up again.
That would be lovely. I'd love to.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ruth. It's
my
been
pleasure.
Wonderful chatting to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, we would love to hear your questions. Maybe there's something you'd really like to ask about fostering. Get in touch. You can email us on podcast@nfa.co.uk.